Hello, YouTube. This is from the archives of Vladimir Konstantinov, Colonel of the General Staff, a retired colonel, actually, of the General Staff. He served as the head of the Industrial Control System Department of one of the sections of the General Staff. In the period between 1979 to 1985, on his own initiative, he collected information about the UFO issue. No one, including from the leadership of the General Staff, interfered with him. So, Soviet Colonel Vladimir Konstantinov has accumulated a voluminous multi-volume archive, which contains observational data obtained through operational channels directly from witnesses, as well as collections of reports from domestic and foreign media, and fragments of analytical research conducted in several countries. The value of this archive lies in the fact that it gives a fairly clear idea of the level and depth of study of the UFO issue that actually faced, and perhaps still faces, no doubt, the leadership structures of the Russian army, the question of the degree of importance of the UFO phenomenon. And one more thing, in the 1970s, during the period of perhaps the most active collection of information about UFOs throughout the Soviet Union, those ufologists who came across information about cases of military sightings were quite proud of their prey, and so to speak, talked about it, referring to some non-publicized primary sources, almost whispering. As a rule, this turned out to be something very arbitrary, inaccurate, or even simply distorted retellings of cases of UFO sightings and other anomalous phenomena recorded in the Soviet Army departments, collected somewhere in the bowels, so to say, of the armed forces of the USSR. So, the primary sources were in the possession of the military. Some of these UFO stories have acquired the character of legends over time. For example, the search for UFOs in a pond in the Perkhushkova area. So the archive of Vladimir Nikolaevich Konstantinov, retired colonel, belongs to those very primary sources. Below, as examples, are fragments from the archive of Colonel Konstantinov, and today I will describe the contents of the two: operational information of the USSR, operational foreign information, India. To preclude unhealthy sensationalism, this is from very obscure but very reliable open sources. So let's start with the operational information for the USSR. On May 17, 1978, from 1 to 2 hours, 4 servicemen observed in the area of Gaisin, 60 kilometers southeast of Vinnytsia, a luminous object with a diameter of about 80 centimeters descending over Gaisin. The object hovered and then abruptly ascended and disappeared. This was reported by the officer on duty. June 15, 1980, the district of Shekhany, Saratov region, at 0.22 hours, 15 kilometers northwest of Volsk, a fireball with a large plume passed through the sky from the southeast to the northwest. There was no soundtrack, so to say. It was a very vivid sight. The sky remained purple from horizon to horizon for 8 minutes. The cloud formed in the area of the fireball's departure slowly dimmed over the course of about an hour, from orange to brown in color. The phenomenon was observed by the sentry, the commander of the guard, and the duty officer at the garrison. No one saw it on the highway where this fireball disappeared. It was transmitted by the operational duty officer of the Volga military district. At the same time, a message arrived in the direction of the transport aviation. The aircraft of the Tashkent-Moscow flight, traveling at an altitude of 10,000 meters, reported that in the Saratov region at 0 hours 20 minutes, the crew observed a fireball above them. Now we go to May 15, 1981. Flying objects were seen around Moscow. Balls, thick clouds, and strange light phenomena. All this was observed by the air posts of the radar companies. In some places, the police chased this ball or sphere, photographing it. Details of the information are contradictory. On May 15, 1981, at 1 hour 40 minutes, flight supervisors and crews of Vnukovo, Sheremetyevo, and Domodedovo airports observed an object with an estimated size of 700 to 1,000 meters. The object stood and moved, leaving a faint contrail as it moved. A report was compiled on this in the management of the main directorate of the Civil Air Aviation. On May 15, 1981, from 2 to 3 hours, 15 officers, 6 warrant officers, and 36 privates in the area of Vypolzovo, Bologaya, in the area of the settlements of Yazhelbitsa and Ugrovka, observed a red ball above the horizon. After 30 minutes, it dropped to about 20 to 25 kilometers and disappeared. At the same time, a luminous object in the shape of a boat with illuminated ends was observed near the village of Vlasicha in the Perhushkova area. There are 3 circles marked inside. The object was in a state of hovering over the lake until 3 a.m. Then it turned into a glowing vertical column, then took on the form of a spiral and dissipated at 3 hours 5 minutes. At the same time, a strong surge of the ejection type was observed on the surface of the lake. According to unverified data, diving operations carried out later on the lake led to the discovery of a cigar-shaped object of light steel color with a diameter of 500 to 600 millimeters and a height of 1.5 to 2 meters. The item was transferred to interested organizations. Colonel Spiridonov, the operational duty officer, reported this. May 22, 1981, at 1 o'clock in the morning, Lieutenant General Chernявsky, who lived in Moscow later on the Komsomorsky Prospect, watched a horizontal flight of a fireball comet in the direction of the southwest through the window and from the balcony of his apartment. A huge cluster of fire was trailing behind the object. There was a noise similar to the noise of an airplane. The object disappeared from view without falling. On June 5, 1981, at 23 hours 50 minutes, 90 kilometers southeast of Smolensk, a spot appeared on the radar station screen, which produced rapid and chaotic movements at a speed of about 1,500 kilometers an hour over a radius of 7 to 10 kilometers. Visual observation from the ground revealed first a dark, then a lightly dimly lit body of indeterminable configuration, a luminous cloud, which was moving towards the airfield from the south at a distance of up to 30 kilometers and with an azimuth of 110 to 120. The body moved away, then approached, then came back to the hovering point. At the same time, air defense systems in the Smolensk area also observed a mark on the radar screen, and the pulse was equivalent in size to that of a fighter jet. The spot was observed visually. There was no sound when it moved. At 0 hours 11 minutes on June 5th, the mark disappeared from the screens. After the aircraft took off for a training flight at 0 hours 40 minutes at a distance of 18 kilometers from the airfield at an altitude of 1,200 meters, the marker reappeared and hovered as if it was in place. After the new appearance of the mark, training flights were discontinued. The operational duty officer reported it, and I must say that the observations began on June 4th at 23 hours 50 minutes, to be sure. Now, according to Colonel Telegin, the control point of the chief of intelligence of the Far Eastern Military District, from 21 hours on January 4th to 7 hours on January 5th, 1982, Khabarovsk time, in the area 73 kilometers along the Amur River in the direction of Komsomolsk, the appearance of 3 unidentified flying objects was noted. They were observed by the staff of the guard and the officer on duty, Senior Lieutenant Parnatuz. The first appearance of the UFO was noted at 21 hours by Private Krasnikov. Then the objects were observed from 5 hours 45 minutes to 6 hours, and from 6 hours 15 minutes to 6 hours 30 minutes, and from 6 hours 45 minutes to 7 hours 5 minutes on January 5th. According to the commander of the guard, at 5 hours 45 minutes, he was checking the sentry service at the post and noticed 3 round glowing bodies in a northerly direction, distance of 5 to 7 kilometers, and at the altitude of 1 to 2 kilometers. One of them was large and was slightly closer to the other 2. All the bodies or objects consisted of luminous dots forming a ball, 15 to 20 dots in a ball or a sphere. The balls moved relative to each other in vertical and horizontal directions. The yellow-orange light from them was dim, but it gave the impression that they were strongly illuminated from the inside. For 15 minutes, the objects were in the same place, and then they began to slowly approach. At maximum proximity, the head of the commander of the guards tried to determine their size. It seemed to him that they were 5 to 8 times the size of the moon. As the objects approached, the area below them was not illuminated. Having approached a short distance, they began to move away at high speed, and after 6 to 10 seconds disappeared over the horizon in a northerly direction. The horizon remained illuminated for some time. Eyewitnesses know that the larger of the objects was moving away ahead of the others. It was also noted that the movement of objects occurred at the same altitude from the ground, as if skirting the folds of the terrain. At the same time of the UFO's appearance, all the eyewitnesses felt relatively calm, although they felt some sense of fear. According to the commander of the guard, who arrived at the post to check the sentry service, he appeared at the post sometime later in an agitated state, shouting something. No unidentified flying objects were detected by the air defense systems. There were no communications failures. Okay, now let's look at the foreign information that interested Colonel of the Soviet General Staff. UFOs over India. Apparently the Soviets were quite interested in India. Actually a friendly country to them at the time. So let's start with this one. April 3rd, 1978, Udaipur. A huge oval-shaped luminous disk was spotted at 9:40 p.m. It sparkled and emitted blue light, moving from south to north, and disappeared after 30 seconds. April 4, 1978, Bombay. UFO spotted at night. It was traveling at an altitude of 3,000 feet at the speed of 1,000 miles per hour. It was shrouded in a white cloud. The object was detected by the Santa Cruz Air Transport Control Service. This report has been carefully studied by a team of experts led by Professor Devendra Lal, head of the research laboratory in Ahmedabad. actually in Ahmedabad. The conclusion, as usual, was optical illusion. July 10, 1979, Islampur, Western Dinipur. A UFO whistled over the school, damaging it in a strange way. Since this event coincided with the fall of the Skylab, many residents mistook it for the fall of the satellite. Several corrugated tin sheets firmly fixed on the roof were torn off. Some of them were later discovered in nearby villages. The kitchen in the building was turned into a pile of rubble, and the walls were significantly cracked. A huge glowing object was moving from northeast to southwest with a whistling sound that many locals heard. October 1979, Villakaner, Raikot district, Gujarat. After the UFO appeared, a strange whirlwind that lasted only 5 minutes injured 35 people, knocked down electric poles, uprooted trees, and tore off roofs of many houses. November 30, 1979, Bombay. A bright object was spotted near the horizon in the west between 7:15 and 7:45 p.m. After half an hour, its glow decreased and disappeared. January 20, 1980, New Delhi. The bright object appeared from the side of the moon, moving in a northerly direction from 249.8 to 250.8 degrees for 10 minutes. According to a statement from a senior employee of the weather service, this was an extremely unusual phenomenon. Instructions followed not to talk about the results of the study. Later, the glow of the object was recognized as the radiance of the planet Venus. February 16, 1980, Cochin. In the gathering dusk, two bluish-green spheres suddenly flashed in the sky and swept away with the wind. Stripes of light in the shape of coils of a snake and the size of a soccer ball were observed over Kotyam for 15 minutes. In Coimbatore, three objects, two white and one red, were observed in the south near the horizon for 15 minutes. Residents of Madurai saw a large red circle about 20 meters in diameter for an hour. In addition, a golden-colored object and two white spots resembling bundles of stars were observed. Similar reports have also been received from Mysore and Bangalore. Officially, it was stated that the observed objects could be descending satellites in the eclipse stage. September 1980, New Delhi. A bright object was seen periodically moving around the moon. Officially, the object was named a star. At first, the object moved away from the moon and then returned to it, and finally, rising sharply above it, disappeared. Obviously, to some, it was an oscillating motion. October 5, 1980, Bilaspur. The flying saucer emitting smoke and poisonous smell landed on the farm with a whoosh. Before it took off and disappeared into the sky, several people had the opportunity to carefully examine it. October 8, 1980, Patna. Residents of the Patrakar Nagar saw a flying object around 10:45 p.m. It moved from northwest to southeast, was a dazzling purple color, and emitted bright multicolored flashes in the tail section. The phenomenon was observed for 30 to 40 seconds. March 27, 1981, Madras. A strange moon-like object was observed for about 10 minutes. It was greenish on the outside and crimson red on the inside. All the colors of the rainbow could be seen around the object. After the observation, the official absurd explanation followed again. The object could have appeared from the space center in Harikot. I tried to keep the language style of the retired colonel in my translation. I find it fascinating that they kept an eye on India. Of course they would. As they kept an eye on China, and vice versa with China and the United States and the Soviet Union. They all keep an eye on each other, and sometimes we get crumbs of the information. And this one I think is very interesting. But no photographs, so I have to find something as illustrations. When I can, I provide Soviet photographs. But again, there were not that many good ones, and fake, nobody wants to show you fakes. That's what I wanted to let you know today. And if you like my research, please support me to the links you'll find in the description to this video. I'll bring you more fascinating videos about ufology in the former USSR, modern Russia, Belarus, Ukraine, of course, China, Central Asia, and so forth. Thank you for your attention to my work. Please subscribe to my channel. Please make sure the channel notifies you when you subscribe. Please tell others about my work.